Welcome, everybody. We'll give you just a moment to get settled. Quite a few people joining us. We'll get started in just a few seconds. It's great to see you all here today. I recognize a lot of names. Thanks for coming. Thanks for taking time out of your day. For some of you, it might be the end of the day. I hope it's the end of the day, so you can wrap things up. Welcome, welcome. As we're getting settled in, you'll notice a couple of things. We do have a chat area that you can toss anything in there that you might like if you want to chat about anything. And also watch that, because we'll also be throwing some links in the chat area for you. Joni just tossed a couple of links there right now. You'll see that there's an attendance link. So we'd love for you to take a moment to go ahead and click that attendance link when you can. That's not going to collect any information besides your name. But the really great part about the attendance link is that that's how we send you a certificate of completion for this webinar. So make sure to click that, and the certificate will be coming out later today or tomorrow morning at the latest. She also tossed a link to the slides that we're using in today's webinar. So that is also out there. And if you've got a question, if you could go ahead and click on the Q&A and type your question in there, that would be perfect. And then we will answer that as we go through the webinar. If it's something we need to address live, we can always do that as well. Looks like we have one question in there, so. Okay.
Yeah, and let me just jump in on this question. So we'll talk a little bit about FRQs today, but we also had a presentation specifically on FRQs and how to kind of prepare for FRQs. And you can find those on our website, I think at codehs.com/pre-PD. Is that the right link? And you'll find a link to that recording. We can put that link in the chat as well.
We did also throw that link into the slide deck as well. So we'll make sure that you get that link in the slide deck. We can toss that into chat, and we can, I'll also make sure that's included in the follow-up email that comes after this webinar is completed. All right. Okay, everybody. So welcome again to our Preparing Students for the AP CSA exam webinar. Very happy to have all of you here with us today. My name's Lori, and I'm a PD specialist here at CodeHS. And we also have Joni with us, who's also a PD specialist. We have Dave with us, who is a curriculum developer here at CodeHS. And we have Gary Vanderlinden, who is a current CS teacher and CSA teacher and a CodeHS teacher trainer. So we are all going to be helping you out, and Joni and Gary are going to be presenting at this webinar today. So I'm going to go ahead and let them take over. You didn't come to listen to me, you came to hear them. So Joni, I'm going to pass this over to you.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Welcome, everyone. Really excited to get to work with you guys today and to give you a lot of great information to get these kids prepared for the test. And just to kind of introduce myself real quickly, I am Joni Neer, and I am a PD specialist here at CodeHS. And I spent 27 years in the classroom, and I was teaching APCSA just like you guys. And so I have some background in it, but always open to hearing some new ideas, which I think that I'm excited to hear what Gary has to say and get some input from you guys also. So let's just kind of jump right in here. I did put the slides and the attendance link in the chat so you guys could see that. And if you couldn't see that or you're at a place where you can't click on something, you can also use this code to be able to scan this and be able to get to our links using the QR code too. So that is there. And today what we're going to do is we're basically going to start going through the APCSA test format first so that you really do understand what's there, how is it put together. Then I'm going to go through some available resources on CodeHS that are available to everyone. So I'll have that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hand it over to Gary, and we're going to hear some of his great ideas on how to review and how to prepare the students. And then at the end, we will have a little Q&A time and wrap up the webinar at that point in time. If you do not have a CodeHS account, you can get one of those. You can sign up for free. And if you go to codehs.com, sign up, that will get you signed up for an account, and you'll be able to see all of these resources. Now, if you would rather just hang back, you can click on that link and fill it out later on. So if you want to just kind of hang back and watch, you can do that. You can go ahead and sign up. You'll be able to get in right away once you get signed up too. So you'll be able to see. Okay, so let's jump right in here. Exam breakdown. What does the AP CSA exam look like? Now, keep in mind that I am talking to people from, I've never taught AP CSA until this year, haven't seen the tests. I have no idea what the kids are getting themselves into, to some of you who I'm sure have taught AP CSA for many years. So kind of starting at the beginning. So you newbies, this is designed for you specifically so that you understand the big picture of what the test looks like. First of all, I want to throw out there that this year's exam goes back to the original way that it was. Okay, so just kind of heads up for all of you people who understand what I'm saying before 2020 happened, right? It is Wednesday, May 4th this time, and it's 12 o'clock your local time. Now, here's the deal. We're lucky this year. There were a couple of years back, a few years back, where the kids took AP Calc in the morning, and then they turned around and took AP CSA in the afternoon. We're lucky. This is the beginning of the cycle. We're on day 3. The kids should not be burnt out. They should not be exhausted, because most AP CSA kids also do AP Calc. And so this year, we're really lucky that we don't have that little conflict there. So the kids really should be able to do very well on it this year, and not kind of hit that burnout that they did that I know that year. So first and foremost, the AP CSA exam is a good old-fashioned pencil and paper test. No computers are used. This is really a big change for the kids, and so preparing them for this type of exam is going to be super essential. So I wanted to make sure that, first of all, you understood that. Paper and pen, that's all they're going to have. Each section, there's actually 2 sections. The first section is the multiple choice section of the test, and that is 40 questions. The students get an hour and 30 minutes to answer those 40 questions, and it's 50% of the exam. So it's just the normal bubble fill in type of a test. And so that part of it, I think that the students, as far as feeling comfortable, they're going to feel very comfortable taking that type of an exam. The second section is the free response. And that's what you're going to hear us say FRQs. Those are the free response questions. They have 4 questions. Wow, that doesn't sound like very many questions. Trust me, it's plenty of questions. And they are going to be an hour and 30 minutes also for that. And it's the other 50% of the exam. So when we dive into this just a little bit deeper to see what's here, first of all, the multiple choice, that's the one there's 40 questions, hour and 30 minutes. That means that they have approximately 2 minutes and 15 seconds on average to answer these questions. Now, we want them to be able to answer the easy ones much more quickly than that, so that they can take more time on those more difficult ones. There are these 3 topics here. You can see that there's several topics that are covered in the multiple choice questions. You've got the programming fundamentals, data structures, you got logic, algorithms and problem solving, object-oriented programming, and recursion. So those are the questions, those are the types of questions that the students are going to see, the topics that are covered. When we get to the FRQ section, this is section 2, there's going to be 4 questions. Now, don't get confused on that, because each of those questions probably have 2 or 3 different parts to it. So you would have question FRQ1, Part A, Part B, Part C, FRQ2, Part A, Part B. There have been times when it's just one question, but most times the students are going to see at least 2, if not 3 sections on each one of those FRQs. Also, the College Board now gives us what each one of these FRQs are going to be covering. So the first FRQ, it is going to be question 1, is going to be on methods and control structures. And this was designed, we found out this is actually designed to be a little bit easier for the students. A, kind of gets them jump started into the FRQs. B, it kind of tells whether if a student is clueless on a lot of stuff, are they 0 or are they a 1? And this first one kind of gives that differentiation between what the students know or don't know. The second FRQ is going to have to do with classes, where they actually finish a class or implement a class. That's where their knowledge of classes is going to need to come in. The FRQ3 is going to have something to do with arrays and array list, one or the other or both. And you've got to remember that they have to understand some of the other stuff. So it's within the context of other things. But what they're really going to be looking for is creating an array or array list. And then the last one is 2D arrays. Now, I had my students even memorize what question is going to be covering what, because if they get to the second question, they're like, oh yeah, they're going to be asking me about classes. So when I read this question, I can pull out the fact that I know I'm going to have to be doing something with the class. When you get to FRQ3, you know it has to do with an array. They're prepared to have to do something for an array on that. So knowing what it is that they're going to be answering. They do have an hour and 30 minutes to answer these 4 questions. Keep in mind that a question has multiple parts. That equates to being about 20 minutes per question, not per part, but per question. So again, having the students being able to know how much time that they've used and how much time they have left is important. However, there are sometimes, I remember one of the FRQs was literally a one-liner. This is when they just had to use one line to be able to complete the part. So it was very, very quick, where others, they have a lot to write. So make sure that you give them a heads up about that it may be long, it may be super short, and don't question themselves because they'll start to overthink it. If they only have to write 2 or 3 lines down, they're like, oh, it can't be that easy. That one might be that easy. So making sure that the kids understand that. When you look at the overview of the whole exam, here's the exam weighting percentages that you can see there. So each unit that is covered on the AP exam, you can see the percentage of questions that cover that. And you kind of notice that when, let me see if I can get this right here. You'll see that Boolean expressions and if statements and iteration, you can see that that's like a big chunk. If you added all these up, they're not going to add up to 100%, because if you're going to use iteration, you're probably using something else too. And so it kind of carries over to that other concept. So that's just something to keep in mind when you look at these percentages, but also when you look at them, you can see that there's a bulk with Boolean expressions and if statements and iterations, and then another one are arrays, and the arrays are another big, sorry about that, another big section of it. So let me go back. I just jumped completely over that. Another big section of it. So kind of seeing what needs to be weighted. Where do you need to spend your time? Where do you need to make sure that students do understand for the test? Okay. All right, so let's take some resources, take a look at some resources that CodeHS has to be able to help you prepare the students. And then after that, Gary's going to take us through some different ideas of how to prepare the students. So CodeHS does provide resources to help teachers prepare for the exam. We're going to take a real quick look at each one of these that I have listed here. Before I get into those, I do want you to take this link, and if at all possible, you need to bookmark this, because this is kind of our whole APCSA hub. Everything that you need to have with APCSA from CodeHS is linked through this hub. So this is kind of my starting point whenever I'm working with all the APCSA stuff. So this is the APCSA hub. It's a great place to see all the resources and to link to all the resources that we have. So the first resource that I want to show you is the fact that CodeHS has two different courses. We've got the Nitro course and the Mocha, and there's some differences between them. The Nitro course follows the College Board exam sequencing, where the Mocha doesn't follow it. It actually does objects late instead of objects early, which is what the College Board wants. But why I wanted you to understand that even though these are both APCSA courses, they do have some differences to them as far as some activities. So you may want to go to one of the other courses. So if you're teaching Nitro or you're teaching Mocha, you may want to look at the other course to see if there are some good exercises or practices that you want your students to do, and you could pull those into your course. If you don't have a course yet with CodeHS that you are using with your kids, know that you do have two options to be able to look at resources through Nitro and Mocha. And again, Nitro is going to follow the sequence of the College Board, where Mocha does objects later. So that's why you would see the difference there. So you can take lessons, exercises, activities from one to the other and be able to have some more curriculum to work with, some more resources. The next thing that we have available is we have actually an APCSA review course. And with this review course, there's actually about 20 hours worth of stuff that you can use. And it's just a way that you can give your students some extra practice. There are some multiple choice questions in there that you can use. There are some coding activities that you can use. So if you know that a student is a little bit behind in one area, you could use this review course just as little parts to be able to pull and say, hey, why don't you go do X, Y, and Z on something that they might be a little bit behind on or needs a little bit of remediation on. You also have the CodeHS practices, where the students can practice unit test type of problems covering a variety of topics. I'm going to pop over to our platform here to show you this. To get to our practices, you just come up here to the top. Once you're in your dashboard, if you just click on practices at the top, what that's going to do is it's going to bring you to the page where we can use any type of programming language, JavaScript, Java, Python, C++, and SQL. Obviously, you want to have your Java selected. And then when you get to these, you can, if they're based on topic and they're based on level. So you have a strings level 1, and then later on, there'll be a strings level 2. You've got Booleans level 1, Booleans level 2. So if you have a student who is really clueless, take them back to have them practice some of these easy stuff, or maybe go to a level 2 to do any practices with. So this is our practice problems. You can choose a topic and you can choose a level to be able to assign to the kids. And then we also now have the CodeHS question of the day. We actually have this for APCSA and we have it for APCSP. So if you're also doing the APCSP, we've got that coming if it's not already out and running. So basically what this does is this allows the students to be able to see a question every day. And if you didn't use it this year, you could use it next year, but they can also, the kids can have streaks so that they can see how many they've answered correctly in a row, and it will show up on their page what that looks like. The good thing about this is that throughout the year, it actually follows along where the students would probably be at that point in time. But here at the end, now it's just a free-for-all because we're to the point where we've been through all the topics and we're kind of down to that last little stretch of about a 3-week. I think we're 4 weeks out from it. So each of these questions are going to probably start being a free for all at this point in time, which is awesome because we want the kids not to forget what they learned at the beginning and be able to hop back and forth between topics. We also have an FRQ Center here, and this is what this looks like. So our FRQ Center is an amazing resource. This is another one that if you don't use CodeHS, I would take this, and if you do, obviously, I would take this link and I would bookmark it. So our APCSA Hub is a definite go-to, and our APCSA FRQ Center is another go-to, because what this does is that students are allowed to be able to see, they can see what the previous FRQ. So we've got all of them curated in one place. So you can see all the FRQ questions from 2013 up to 2019, I think is the last ones that have been published at this point in time. And you have options to be able to see that as a PDF, and you have options to be able to see the scoring guides. You can assign it to students for where they can complete the different parts, being able to code it, or they can code it and check it. So there's all different kinds of different options to be able to use this. Now, what I would like to do is I want to keep rolling with this, because you can get caught up in this really fast. And what we'll do is, if at the end, if we've got time, I'm going to circle back around and give you guys a little bit deeper dive into this FRQ Center if we have time to. If not, it's so self-explanatory. You definitely can explore it on your own too. All right. And then we also have resources for you to that are external resources listed in this slide here. We've got the AP community. We've got the Facebook for APCSA teachers. We've got that group that you can connect with. We've got the CodeHS APCSA educators group on Facebook, and we have just the educators Facebook group. So we've got all kinds of Facebook groups that you can be a part of, that you can hook up with people and get some ideas and kind of network at that point in time with those guys. All right. So now we're ready to get into what are some great exam review strategies that you guys can use. You've got the resources. So let's see how we really apply everything. So Gary, I am going to hand this over to you. I'm going to stop sharing mine here, Lori, and let you.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. And I'm one of you. I feel the stress and the rush of the May 4th day coming along pretty quickly. You know, I guess the first thing I would offer is that I probably do not have any magic answers for you. I've got some ideas. I've got several years of experience, but this is one of the toughest times of the year, I feel, because the kids are kind of at that point. Spring break is either come or coming. And they're so distracted and they feel like they know it all. And so it's just a tough time to get review done, because that's not something that probably any of us like to do, is sitting there and stare at something and try to memorize it or learn it. So the things I'm just going to share are things that I've tried. Some work better than others. I know one of the questions early on was about the FRQs. I really focus a lot of time on that, because I feel if they can find ways to strategically solve those, that's going to carry over into the MCQs, is kind of my hope. So Lori, if you want to go to the next one, go ahead. Okay, so one of the things that I do, not now in these 3 weeks, right now I'm focused just on FRQs, but in the last few weeks, is we go through some of the units, and you know, let's say there's 21 questions in the MCQ part, and so I'll let students pick a question, let them spend some time looking at it, and then come up and explain to the class their reasoning. Just a couple highlights. I would say the one that we did on classes, Lori, I know, or Joni, you just mentioned about classes being an important topic. You know, when they started doing multiple classes, instances of classes, you know, they got very confused very quickly. And so again, it was a great discussion for them to explain it to themselves versus, listening to me. What was the next one then, Lori? Yeah, I don't know if that works for you. Sometimes it does. I do give them extra credit if they kind of do a whole bunch of the review materials together just to try to incentivize them to do that. Let's see, next. So I know Joni just talked about all the FRQ Center that CodeHS has, and I'm not trying to take anything away from that. But over time, I try to take some of the FRQs from previous years and turn them into actually coding assignments. I guess philosophically, I just think that the students are coding. That's better than sitting there trying to stare at the book. Also, a lot of times they will write stuff down that when they go to code it, they'll be like, oh, that won't work. And so again, I want them to have that experience of they think a certain way and then they come back up. And an example today, we're doing one currently, I think it's unit 6, and it's words that end in ing, and they had to use the enhanced for loop. Well, that was kind of a subtlety because that's not something that's spelled out, that there could be a question on the enhanced for loop, but then how to get to the ing. And one student was adamant that I did it right and it's not printing right. Well, there's a difference between -1 and -3. So again, he wouldn't have caught that, I don't think, on the exam because he wouldn't have had time to really delve into that. So these are all different FRQs that I put in. I think these are all, I believe, in the problem bank. And then on the next slide, I think there's some additional ones that I think there's 2 or 3 of these slides, but this is one from this year's College Board. And I kind of go through each of the units and I give them the starter code, excuse me, which is, on the College Board, they give you the paragraph to fill in. Well, the starter code lets them have it as code, and then they have to fill it in. And then I have my own solution code so that I can match up what they should have versus what they have. And so there's one on the longest streak. This one, and then this is a good point for a strategy. For each of these, I really try to get them to think about, and I think, Joni, you mentioned about the FRQs, what they're asking each of them. But for each of the questions, to look at the question and figure out what is it that you are being asked to do. Read the question, understand it, and understand how you solve it. This is an example where they were supposed to find which letter had the longest streak. They didn't realize that you actually had to keep track of 2 things then. What's the current streak and what's the longest streak? And so again, they spent a lot of time struggling with that. So again, I'm just trying to help them maybe think through some strategies. Again, I kind of equate it to sports. We're really working on timing too, because there's 2 questions I typically give them every day, and they have 90 minutes. Well, they've got to get 4 done in 90 minutes. And so that's just part of that, keep doing it. The next one, Lori. This one, all the students thought was the hardest, and I would agree. This one had 1 question, going back to your point, Joni. This was a 1 question. This is what they have for the practice sessions. But again, it was a harder one, and they had to really kind of think that through and try to deal with iterating through several arrays in different objects. Okay, next one. I've had some minor success using quizzes. A lot of times, again, I'm just prone to like the FRQs because I think if they get down and dirty and they're coding, they're thinking, their logic is there. Sometimes I think at this time of year, they're like us. They kind of start to tone out a little bit. So yeah, I'll do it now and then to break things up, but I don't find great success from that. Next one. This is kind of my favorite. I think some of them like it too. We kind of work hard all year, and then I let them have a day where try to confuse me. And of course, they come up with some of the wildest questions in the world, but we have fun doing it, because I'll try to pretend like maybe if I don't know it, you know, I'll try to work through it with them, but they then see that, hey, I'm just as human as they are. But it's just an idea because it forces them to think of the problem, to create the question. And so, you know, that's just a fun activity. Okay, next one. This one is a lot of work to do, but it's a fun one where you can post problems like I do it on the lockers out in the hallways. And so if they get question 1 done correctly, and then they have, let's say, 4 choices for what the answers are, if they get the right answer, it takes them to the next one, and et cetera. And so as they would fill out like a scorecard, it might spell a word or something to show that they did them correctly as they went. So when they came back to the room, they can then show that they did all the problems correctly, type of thing. Next one, Lori. There you go. So again, my takeaway is I love the FRQs because I think the more coding they do, and hopefully the more errors they make, the more they will learn.
And I think we have one more strategy on here. I think, Dave, was this one of yours that you used by chance?
Yeah, yes, this is one that I used. I can share another one as well. So one of the things I used to do, and I actually started this early in the year, but I would give them challenges and these coding relays. So put up a question on the board, and usually you had to have split the kids into groups of 3 or 4, and then give them each a different problem. And what they had to do is they had to go up and write 1 line of code to solve that problem. And the next student would have to go up and either correct that line of code or write the next line of code. And they basically just would go back and forth and write the lines of code. And then once they did that, they could then go, after everyone finished, we would have them go to all the different boards and take a look and see, did they solve the problem correctly? If not, what would they do differently? So it kind of gives them a chance to answer questions, work in groups, do something a little bit different. And like I said, I did this starting relatively early with smaller problems, problems similar to the CodeHS practice problems or something like that, just to kind of get kids going and thinking of writing code by hand. One other strategy I use too, that to help kind of break up questions, because like Gary said, that at this point, the students don't really want to do a lot of multiple choice questions anymore. So I would do Trasketball. And so what I would do is I would take the practice exams from College Board, and I would just go through them, put the kids in groups of 2. And so give them a question, they'd go through the exam, give them a minute to answer it, talk with their partner about it. If they got it right, they got to take a shot at the basket. If they get a basket, they get a point. And at the end of the day, you can kind of tally up the points and give extra credit for that. But again, it was a nice way to go through things. They're discussing questions. It gets them up and moving and does it in a way that's a little bit more fun to do.
Thanks, Dave. We've had a couple of questions in the Q&A. First, yes, you will get all of the email links or all the links that we are sharing today in the follow-up email. And I'll make sure to include the previous FRQ webinar that we did as well. But yeah, you'll have all of these links available to you in that follow-up email. And the other question are the CodeHS question of the day questions, representative of what students will find in the multiple choice question section of the exam.
Yes, I'll answer that. So what I would say is some of them are a little bit easier. So they're not all necessarily designed to be really challenging questions. Some of them, they're more, will get students looking. Like today's question, I believe, talked about finding a equivalent or which expression would always be evaluated true. You might see a question like that on the AP exam, but I think the answer to today's question was probably a little bit easier than what you would see on the AP exam. So similar format. Some of them are as challenging as AP questions. Some of them are not quite as challenging as AP questions, but they are good kind of to draw students in as kind of a bell ringer or something to get started with.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. Let's see, I'm just checking out chat real quick. Great ideas. Awesome. Thrilled to see that. So we're really glad that you're hearing some good ideas today. And yes, all those links will absolutely be included in that follow-up email. Are there other questions out there from anybody? Is there a bank of past AP multiple choice questions on CodeHS?
So yeah, the past multiple choice questions are few and far between from College Board. You'll have to find specific past questions of multiple choice from College Board. They have, I think, one released exam and one practice exam out there, but they generally don't release multiple choice questions the same way they release frequently or FRQ questions.
Gotcha. Let's see. And somebody else is struggling to find past MCQ examples on the AP website. And I think we might have limited access to that, if I'm correct about that.
So Gary, you
I
might
don't
be able
know
to
if
speak more to
Joni
this.
or
Yeah, Gary, you might be able to speak more to this,
Yeah.
but in the past, they were under the AP audit section. And the AP audit section is something only current teachers have. And so I know I saw them there when I was a teacher, but I don't know if they're still there. I haven't been in the classroom for a couple of years, but I'm not sure if anyone knows specifically.
Gary, do you know?
Yeah, so they've reorganized the protocol or the portal a little bit, but when you come in, there's it's kind of a green, it's not really a complete circle, but it talks about the question bank and their progress reports or progress quizzes. And so if you go to the progress, which is kind of what I was referring to for each of the units, then it lists the MCQ questions, the FRQs, and obviously that's from their bank of questions that they've had from previous years. So every unit has at least one set of multiple choice questions, probably on average of 25 to 40 questions per unit, and then typically 2 or 3 FRQs per unit. And so in terms of an actual exam, no, there's maybe one, but I forget what year it is, but it's several years old.
Okay, thanks. Looks like we have a question. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say the question on the FRQ Center, and Joni, I'm not sure if you were going to bring that up and want to demo that at all, but we can kind of go through that, how that works. Because the question is, does it actually check the code if it's correct? And we actually have both ways that you can do that on the FRQ Center. So we have one way that allows them to, it's a text only. And we put that there to kind of simulate a little bit more of what the students are going to see, because when they're writing the code by hand, they're not going to be able to check the code. And so if you want to give them practice where they can't actually run the code and check to see if they have it correct and check to see if they have mistakes, you can assign it that way. We also have a version of it where we do allow them to run it, and we actually do have auto graders for those. So if you choose the running it way, they'll actually be able to run it. They'll be able to check to see if they got the right solution. But again, that's not exactly how they do it on the test. So you can kind of do it either way, depending on how you want to set it up and how the kids want to do it. But one thing to note is, any past AP FRQ, the answers are freely available. So the kids really have to want to take the time to work these problems, because if they want to find the answer, they'll be able to find it pretty easily. So it's not really a test question from the perspective that you want to grade it, but it is a good chance for them to try to do things.
Joni, would you like me to stop sharing if you wanted to take a look at FRQ Center? All right.
Yeah, let's look at that right now. Oops. Let's see. So let me bring up what Dave was talking about on the FRQ Center, you guys, because there's a couple places that I'm going to answer somebody's question. I kind of forget what the question was specifically, but I think that this will help you. Let me get out of that one. So this is our FRQ Center, and you can see that we've got the list curated here, the 2013 all the way down to 2019, each one of the questions, and it's even numbered of what the question is, okay? So when you look at it, you can actually see what it is. So if you know that your kids are having problems with writing a class, you could come here to the 2015 one because we've put in what topic it is. So you don't have to dig through it to find the one that you're looking for. You have the ability to be able to download the scoring guide and to download the questions if you want. So if you need them to practice with that pencil and paper, like I said, this is a great way to do that. Make copies of it and force the kids to write if you haven't done so already throughout the year. And then you also can give them a scoring guide, because one of the things that I would have the kids do is that I would have them grade their own quote grade, right? So they're going to look through it and see what they think that they would get on it. They would go with a partner and they would look at each other's and decide how many points that they would get. So the question then becomes, well, what about those solutions, right? So up here, and then I'll show you the rest of these over here for just a second. Up here, we did add a link in that takes you to the College Board FRQ resources and solutions. And that's this page right here. So you can go to the free response question of whatever year that you want to go to, and you can see sample responses. And on those sample responses, it will literally show, let me see if I can get one to come up here pretty quickly. It'll literally show, there's your scoring guidelines for that one. There's the canonical answers. So those are the answers that they would kind of expect the students to have, but take a look here. They literally have taken one of the kids' answer sheet and shown what the samples look like. Okay, and then I'm not sure if it has what they actually scored. Yeah, so what it does is it shows, okay, on sample 1, they got a score of 9, and this tells what they got points on. So you as a teacher, it would be great for you to go read through this. The kids aren't going to, right? So you go read through it, and then you can show them an answer and say, okay, let's all go grade this person's. You can print this out, like literally have them grade this one, and then go through that grading based on what they've given you down here and show the students what they're going to get graded on or what that person got graded on. So to me, this resource right here has the good resources for actually being able to grade and show the students how they're going to be graded and make an activity out of it, not just, oh, boom, here it is, right? So get them involved in it. And then the other thing that Dave was talking about was you can see that we've got the ability to be able to try to do you can do a text only, or you can do a runnable here on, this is back on our site on the FRQ Center. So what we've done here is if you open the text only version of it, the students are going to see the question. We've got it just like they would see it on the AP exam. And what they would do is they would type their answer in here, but they can't run it. So it's kind of that in between. They're not writing it and they're not being able to run it and check it. It's that in between. They have to write it and not know whether it's correct or not. And the students have to get used to doing that. Or if you want them to do a runnable one, let's say you're early on practicing FRQs. On this one, they can actually put in their answer and hit the run button, and it'll tell them whether they got it correct or not. And so this is kind of the first step on here. Let's code this and see if we can get it to work. They get to try it. Then you go to the step of doing just the text where it's like, hey, go do this, but you're not going to know whether it's right or not, and see how well they handle that pressure. And then the last one is to be able just to download, give them the question itself. I also suggest that with the students, you start out with literally just one part of one question. So you give them the question, which it gives them a whole, like it's a whole stinking page and a half sometimes of instructions. And then there's part A. So just start out with part A. Can you do part A, and don't overwhelm them with this great big thing. And then eventually, as you get closer to the time for the test, then start giving them multiple questions. You usually can get 2 done in a period, right? Because it's 40 minutes. And so you usually, if you get them started right away, you could expect them to be able to get 2 questions done as best they can. Whether they got it correct or not, can they handle the pressure of doing the best that they can on the FRQ? So that's some of the ways that I integrate studying for the FRQs, some strategies.
Excellent. Thanks, Joni. Thanks, Dave. And thank you, Gary. I'm gonna go back and share my screen one more time. All right, everybody. If we have other questions, go ahead and toss those into the Q&A and we can definitely take a look at those. Otherwise, we have a few more resources for you. I'm telling you, we have a lot of links packed into these slides. You will get them all, I promise. So expect that to come tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. And you can see here on this slide, you've got the link for the AP CSA Hub. So make sure to take a look at that. That has all things AP CSA on it. We also have the review course linked here, the FRQ Center, and the question of the day as well. And we have we have another slide of resources because it just never stops. We have many, many resources for you. If you have been a CodeHS teacher for a long time, we definitely invite you to become a CodeHS certified educator. And also, if you haven't joined the CodeHS Educators Facebook group, make sure you do that. That's a really great active group to join. There's also the CodeHS APCSA Facebook group as well. And if you are looking for additional workshops, and we are always adding workshops, and you can see all of those at codehs.com/freepd. We've got some listed. I have a few more that hopefully will get posted by the end of day tomorrow. So keep an eye out for those. And of course, follow us on social media. We are on TikTok now, just in case we've got any TikTok fans out there. And our next webinar will be preparing students for the AP CSP exam. So in case any of you are doing that double duty of CSA and CSP, make sure to join us next week for the AP CSP exam overview. And we have a couple others coming up towards the end of the month. One of our other teacher trainers, Ken Pendleton, will be also joining us for an awesome session. If you haven't done any of Ken's sessions in the past, I definitely invite you to head out to codehs.com/freepd and sign up for his session next. And we have, that's it. All right, there we go. So I want to thank all of you for coming. I was thinking I had one more slide in there. You never know how many resources I throw into these slides. So I want to thank all of you for coming. If we don't have any other questions, Joni, Dave, Gary, I don't know if we're seeing any. I think we're good. All right. We'll go ahead and wrap up our APCSA webinar for today. If you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are more than happy to help however we can. So we invite you to let us know what questions you have. But otherwise, good luck with the remainder of your year. Good luck as you're preparing your students for that APCSA exam. And thank you all so much for spending part of your day with us today. Thanks, everybody. See you at the next workshop.